Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name is Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. Along with making these YouTube educational videos and online courses, what I also do is design websites for clients. And one website I recently designed was for this client who has a wedding venue in South Georgia. And amongst the design, I wanted to change from a testimonials page to pulling testimonials throughout the website. So instead of having just a row of text, I wanted more of a graphical element. And one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to pull the quotes out. So in this design, I actually have the open quote and the closed quote much larger, as you can see, and they're floating in the top left and bottom/bottom right. What it also does is it's also completely responsive. So the little icons or the quotes move depending upon the size of the screen. In this video, I want to show you how I built this from start to finish. And with that, let's get started. All right, once again, my name is Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes, and this channel is all about helping you design more and to troubleshoot less. If that's what you're looking for online, then hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell so you never miss a video. All right, a few things before we begin. One, I am using the Gatsby Charter default library design. However, I did go in previously and stripped out all the basic design elements. To me, this is how I like my templates to look like. Pretty much boring and without any design components already built in. If you want to use this, you're welcome to. I have a link down below in the description where you can actually go and download my Gatsby Charter template that I like to use. Also, I've previously installed React Bootstrap in this design because I am going to take advantage of the container, which comes in both React Bootstrap and the vanilla Bootstrap as well. It's also built in, so you're welcome to download that and follow along. I'll also put a link in the description below of how to install React Bootstrap because it'll really help you with your designs. So what I want to do first is I'm going to go into the HTML or the JSX/HTML and set up this testimonial in the design. It's going to look pretty boring, and then we'll go into the CSS and make it look amazing. So let's head over to our project in Gatsby. I'm going to head over to my pages. There we go. And we'll go to the index file. Open with Visual Studio Code. And let's start by adding a container to this design. So at the top, I'm going to say import curly brackets container, and this is going to be from React Bootstrap. Again, if you haven't installed it, go back and either watch my video or go back and install React Bootstrap for this part to work because it'll help you in the responsiveness of this testimonial. So let's go down below. I'm going to put it down, we'll put it before Mr. Spaceman. Why not? So I'm just going to add the container and I'm going to say test just to make sure it's working fine. Whenever I do things, I don't want to go too far without testing them because if I know that part works, I can go forward. So test moves and it breaks with all the breakpoints that come with both React Bootstrap and classic vanilla Bootstrap. Awesome. I have my container. Now what I want to do is add my testimonial. I'm going to use a block quote, which is lowercase block quote, to encapsulate the quote. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say P class name and say quotation. We're going to use this class name later on in our CSS. I'm going to prep my quote so it's going to work. So I'm using a paragraph tag inside the block quote. And for just relevance, I want to pull up, nope, not that project. I want to pull up lipsum.com. because I want some fun lorem ipsum copy. There it is. So lorem ipsum, if we scroll down, gives us just dummy text to use. So at lorem ipsum, I'm just going to copy the first couple sentences to bring in, and I'm going to paste inside of the quote. What I'm next going to do is have a cite or a reference down below. So I'm going to say cite, because this is the person who's actually telling me what the quote is. This person is going to be, I usually use an N dash, which is on the Macintosh option dash to give it a slightly longer dash. And I will say John Smith And then I'm also going to add a different design for the word groom. So I'm going to say span class name equals title testimonial in here. And I'll call this one groom. So that way I have the quote, which is lorem ipsum. I have John Smith, and I have a span around the word groom. Span tags are my superheroes. I love them because they do absolutely nothing by default. And in coding, that's the mark of a superhero. So if I go back and take a look, it looks pretty boring. There's nothing going on. Also note, I didn't type the quotes in. We're going to do that separately with our CSS. And again, using the design with React Bootstrap, it breaks from extra large to medium to small and then to extra small. Now that we have, where'd it go? Now that we have our block quote, paragraph, and our site and our superhero span tag set up, it's now time to go into our CSS to make it look amazing. I also built in a blank CSS file in my kind of Gatsby template that I use. So I also have a CSS folder, and in there is a custom CSS file that looks like this. It's basically empty. So what we can now do is we can take all these components and now make them extra gorgeous in our CSS. So I always start from top to bottom, biggest to smallest. What I mean by top to bottom, I think about block quote first, quotation second, site third, and then the title testimonial last, because I want to go from top to bottom, biggest to smallest. So in my CSS, I'm going to start with just the block quote. And because it is a tag, there's no period or pound sign / hash mark before it. We'll use our curly brackets to open and close. And I'm going to say margin 5 rem 0. Now the reason why I use the rems is because I'm following the traditional path of Get Bootstrap or React Bootstrap. And that's because if we head back, and I don't have the screen open unfortunately, but I will do it by saying getbootstrap.com. And let me try that one more time. Get bootstrap spacing. And the reason why, and this is why I like to follow this pattern, is the spacing within the vanilla / React Bootstrap works with rems. So what you're going to find is when there is sizes of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that uses rem spacing. So what I like to do is follow the same pattern. In this case, I used 5 rem for the top and bottom. When we write 5 rem 0, this is the top bottom margin, and this is the left right margin. And there is no margin I want on the left or right. I also want to change the color to gray in this instance. So if we save it, take a look, now we have gray type. I guess I can move it more to the right. And this can be more. There we go. Now we're a little more spaced out. So we have our testimonial. It's got the margin space going on. Now, the one thing I will change is that when it hits the extra small section, what I really want is about a lot less than 5 rem on the top and bottom. So I want to write a media query that holds the space differently. So I'm going to say @media screen and max width of 600 pixels. So once it gets smaller, basically in a mobile framework, I want to take the block quote and I want to change the margin to 1 rem and 0. Now we do that is it just creates a little less space. When I'm scrolling on a phone, I don't want so much empty space in there. And if we pull it back, it now creates the same 5 rem until it hits that number. Perfect. Looking good in responsiveness. So let's go back and finish our actual block quote. So the block quote, what I'm going to do is then start typing in above the media query. I want to say quotation. And the quotation is going to set up the framework. The font size, I'm going to stick with 30 pixels because I want it bigger. And it doesn't always hot reload right away unless I didn't type it in. Let me take a look. What did I not do? It also helps to spell quotation correctly. Quotation. I don't even know what that is. That would pretty much help. There we go. Quotation. Now the font looks a lot better. So far so good. So let's keep on rocking and rolling here. So if we go back to our custom, font size 30 pixels, PSA, public service announcement, please remember to spell things properly or spell them twice improperly as long as they're spelled inaccurately the same way. So I had quotation, and now it's working. Margin, I'm going to strip the paragraph default settings and say margin 0 auto. That's going to pull some stuff down below for John Smith, the groom, in here. After that, I'm going to add some padding to the quotation. And I will say 10 pics, 20 pics. That'll just pull it a little bit in so we have room to put the quotes. From there, I'm going to add a little line height. So I'll say 1.4 EM. There we go. Just pulls it a little bit in. Going on. Text align. I wanted to be centered. And it didn't catch. Come on. Was not doing. Text align center. Anyways, I'll come back to that one. I think it's just not catching it. And I did have a lighter font, so I am going to say font weight 200. There it goes. Nice and clean. And now it centers it. I'm not quite sure why before it was doing that, but I did want to pull a lighter font, in this case right here. So font weight 200 and center did catch. Every so often I find in Gatsby that the hot reload on random CSS pieces just takes an extra kick to kick into gear. I'm not quite sure why, but it is what it is. So the quotation looks like this, and what I'm going to then do is come down to the block quote to design that piece. So not the block quote, the citing of the block quote. So I will say block quote cite in case I decide to use cite somewhere else in my design. And I'm going to display block this because it's going to sit more in the middle. So display block. I'm going to text align the center. There we go. Now it's sitting more in the middle. Font weight is 200. There we go. And I'm also going to use a font size on my design of 1.4 EM. There we go. So now the quote is much bigger and John Smith groom is smaller, and I didn't have to lastly design this aspect to give it a little lighter in color going forward. So what I last have to do for all the styling of that nature is come down and say title testimonial. And because I'm not trusting my spelling in this instance, let me double check it. Copy title testimonial and double check and make sure that I have it. See, testy, what did I not do? Oh, geez, I spelled it twice wrong. So testimonial, let's get it right. See, you can't trust, I can't trust myself in this instance because I did not spell testimonial properly. Now we're looking good. My honest test is to make sure it works. Throw a color in that's like green. And if it eventually works or doesn't work, there's groom. It's green. I now know that it's working properly. So the color should not be green. What I want to do is just add a slightly different variation. So I'm going to say color RGBA 000.3. That's a 30% gray. And what it's going to do is apply that light gray on top of the gray going on. So we have John Smith groom. Perfect. Title testimonial looks good. John Smith is great. But we now have to add the quotes inside of our design. So to that, we use our pseudo classes before and after. So I'm going to come back up to quotation, and I'm going to say quotation, colon, before. Now, if you've typed the word before for your pseudo class with just one colon, that's because in CSS2, if we head over to Mozilla, it does tell us that in CSS2, the syntax was one colon before, and in CSS3, the syntax is now colon or double colon now as well. Both work. In fact, I catch myself typing only one colon at a time on occasion, only because I was so used to typing just one colon. So it will work with either one colon or two, but two is more traditional nowadays with CSS3. Quotation before. What's the content going to be? It's going to be an open quote. So we'll type open quote. And let's save and see if it shows up. Cool. It shows up right here, but I don't want sans serif. I want a serif font family. So in this case, I'm going to say font family and just type the word serif. And now it adds a much more clean look. I find a lot of the sans serif quotes don't look as good even matched with a sans serif typeface. So either go to Google Fonts or just type in font family serif to pull that style in. Now that the fonts are separated from the quotations, we can make them a different size. Let's also add display inline so it holds it right next to that text as well. We'll say height is 0 so it stays in the same position. Line height is 0 as well, so it's not going to move up or down. And then we're going to say left, -10 pixels. Let's move it over. Maybe it's not, maybe it will. Come on, buddy. I don't know why it's not moving. CSS is not rewriting properly for some reason. Oh, you know what it was? Position relative. That's better. I had it backwards. I meant to put position relative first and left second, and I typed them backwards. So the position relative enables it to move based upon the position that is relative to that position right next to the L. Without that position relative, the left doesn't work. What I'm also going to do is say top 30 pixels, and it's going to drop down below, but I'm going to make the font bigger here. So we'll say color. I'm just going to add a color. I'll say CCC to make sure it's a little bit lighter gray. There it goes. And font size, I'm going to say is 3EM. That's better. Now that font size came in, everything moved around. I had it just at the bottom because I was changing it so much. But in theory, I can move it up to the top. And now that open quote fits in that little pocket corner. And with the relative, when the L moves, the quote moves too. And if I move my browser, it's still holding perfectly in that position because it's relative to the L of lorem ipsum. Now that we have the before, we're going to do the after. So if I come down right between the before and the cite, what I next want to say is quotation after. So I will say quotation with a period, because I am using that correctly, quotation, double colon, after. And with that, I'm going to use the same styling, but I'm then going to pull the close quote in here as well. So I'll say content, close quote, and close it up. Display inline to keep it in line. Height, we'll keep to 0. Line height, we'll 0 it. Then we'll say left, not -10, but 10 pixels. And again, I had it backwards. So what I should have is position relative and then left 10. And now what you're left with is that 10 goes to the right and -10 goes to the left. So that quote mark now sits in that position to the right of the period. And our last couple lines, left 10 pixels, we'll say top 35 pixels. Font size is going to be 3EM to match the top. And the font family is going to be serif. And I forgot the color. Somewhere in there, I didn't type color in. Color CCC. There we go. Now we have those pulled quotes. The also reason why I made the gray color is that I didn't want the quotes to be so heavy. Because those fonts are bigger, because I did make them 3 versus a lot smaller of the testimonial type, that if I didn't have a lighter color gray, and if I take it out right here, maybe, again, it doesn't hot reload every single CSS. There we go. Notice now how much stronger those quotes are. And I want the text to be first and foremost the thing you see, and the quotes to be secondary. So I really utilize the power of contrast to pull back the quotes. That little serif, that little color does not want to. Nope. I wanted a space, not a paste. There we go. That's better. So now I have those quotes with a lighter color gray, and then the groom is the least important piece. So I have even a lighter color gray in there. And you're also noticing that these are pretty much the same. If I move my browser or my code editor up a little bit this way, that I eventually can combine these to a degree. So eventually what I will do as my next steps is I would come up here and I would copy and paste that as well and start taking pieces out below unless I need it. So I always think about if I can type a little less code, that's one less thing I can make or go wrong. So that'd be my next steps. But I at least wanted to show you how you can have before and after quotes that look gorgeous as testimonials in your design. And again, if we double check it, it's going to work and kick back to 1 rem versus 5 when it comes to being responsive for a mobile design environment. If you want more videos helping you design more and troubleshoot less, check out the videos I have here and don't forget to subscribe. As always, I'm Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. Thanks so much for watching and have a fantastic day.